So diving in, first up is Maryanne from Rogers. And Maryanne writes, I'm 62. I've worked at my current job for 18 years and just got offered a severance package with 12 months notice. I'm not sure whether to take this as a sign to retire or if I need to start looking for a new job. What do I do? Big decision for Mary, getting the severance package offered with 12 months notice. So what do we need to consider, John? Let's dive into that for Mary.
Well, first of all, good thing, Mary, that you get 12 months notice.
Yes.
Some people get 12 minutes notice.
Correct.
And so, that's a real good thing. And you've got a great opportunity. But I do think that you need to really have the right mindset going into this. First of all, you need to have a planning mindset. You know what's coming, so you've got to plan. Now, secondly, I don't think, Mary, just because somebody in some corporate office decides that they need to get rid of some employees and offer a severance package, I don't think that needs to determine what you are going to do. You are solely in control of your retirement date. It's not an imaginary date. It's not a date that your employer says, okay, it's time for you to retire. You really need to evaluate that. And Scott, I think that first of all, the severance package is probably going to be some percentage of their salary or their income or something of that nature, but it's likely to not be enough to really fund retirement.
That's right.
So I think that there has to be an evaluation first of what Mary needs to be able to continue her lifestyle and her living expenses during that retirement time. And the question has to be asked, do you have enough? And I think that's where we start.
Yeah, and that severance package, Mary, is obviously meant to replace your income for a very short amount of time. But when you're talking about making a decision whether this should be a sign to retire or not, it should be based on a plan that shows you can you replace your income for the rest of your life. And that's what John's alluding to. So that really depends on where you are, and we need to know a lot more details to be able to answer that question, and it depends on where you are in the ready-to-retire process. And that is the GenWealth Financial Advisors process that we've trademarked, that we put every client through in creating a detailed written plan for their retirement. It includes that written plan, and inside of that, a analysis on how to maximize Social Security, how to defend against taxes. And when we're talking about replacing your income for the rest of your life, you're going to need to know how Social Security fits into that with assets that you may have saved and invested over the course of your work life. We're going to need to know how taxes eat into that and creating a strategy to take home as much income as you can from those assets. We've got a plan for long-term care. Long-term care is, I always call it the potential elephant in the room, John. It's the one thing nobody wants to talk about unless they've had family history usually in dealing with it, but it is something that has to be a consideration when you're talking about replacing your income, whether it happens or not.
Yeah, long-term care is one of those things that, as you said, everybody kind of has their head in the sand to some extent about, but it is the one big thing that could blow up your financial plan. Now, we don't know whether Mary is married or not. We do know that she is 62, so from a income planning standpoint, knowing that there is Social Security available, at least, that does kind of fill in some of the blanks there. But I think that the real prescription here, Mary, is to really take stock of where you are in terms of your health, where you are in terms of whether you've got the energy to keep working, if you have the desire to keep working. Some people really do love their work and really want to just wade into it for a long period of time. Don't see themselves really retiring until maybe into their 70s or something like that. So I think that you first of all have to put away any notion that the employer has really any big influence on you and your decision to retire or not. And so obviously we need to know what you're looking at in terms of 401k savings, assets otherwise invested like IRA accounts, Roth IRA accounts, maybe investment accounts that you have with after-tax money. All of that has to be evaluated, and you figure out, first of all, how much money do you need coming in every month to pay your basic living expenses, and then figure out how you're going to cover that. And then above and beyond that, you take a look at, okay, what would I like to have? What discretionary spending would I like to be able to do on a regular basis? Now, here's a little caveat to this, Scott. You can't get real crazy about that. You know, I would like to, what is the saying you used to say? And some people want to go to Paris, France, and some people want to go to Paris, Arkansas.
Right. Yep.
That trip is a big difference financially.
Yes.
And so I think that you've got to be realistic about what your discretionary spending could be. But I think that the other thing that I would evaluate is what would my plan support right now versus if I continue to work, continue to save, continue to let my investments grow and compound, where would I likely be in the future? And all of those answers are actually discoverable in the GenWealth Ready to Retire process.
And I think that's actually for our clients more often than not the way we go. They're not real sure about how much discretionary income they'd like to have because most people do say I'd like to have as much as I can, right? So we're going to be able to walk through that Ready to Retire process, create a monthly income plan, and show you based on the asset level you're at, what amount of income on a monthly basis will it produce? And that can help people like Mary, or if it's you who's listening on the other end today, it'll help you understand, well, here's where I am and here's what I can get out of my assets. And then maybe that causes you to consider a hybrid retirement. That's another possibility for Mary too, is maybe you're not ready to retire yet, but maybe you're ready to semi-retire and not have to find another job like the one you're currently in.
I think either way, Scott, in about a year, Mary's going to have some really important decisions to make. And looking at those decisions, I think she's got to understand what her 401k options are. So let's walk through those for just a moment. Obviously, in a 401k plan, that's money that you put in and your employer has matched to some degree. And it's all pre-tax money unless you've made Roth contributions. And so deciding what to do with that at the juncture when you are gone from your work, when you actually do sever your relationship with your current employer, that's a big deal. So let's walk through your options. You could leave the money with your old employer. Not a lot of people really think that that's a great idea because they are disconnected from their old employer. They don't really know what's going on with the plan and that type of thing. The other thing is, if you actually do decide that you want to continue working and you get a new job between now and then you can roll that 401k into the new 401k, assuming the new company has a 401k. If they don't have a 401k, or if you want to just get your assets ready for your eventual retirement, then you can roll those assets into an IRA account. You could roll Roth assets into a Roth IRA account. Either way, that is a non-taxable transaction. It is taking it out of one pocket and putting it into another, but the pocket that you put it into, you're actually in control of with your advisor, and in terms of the investments that you're selecting for that account, in terms of how that money is invested, either short-term, intermediate term, or long-term. Lots of options there. The final way that you could handle that 401k is to just cash it out. And Scott, that is one that we really just oftentimes dissuade people from even thinking about doing because the tax consequences are so great. If you have $100,000 in your 401k and you've been making, let's say, $50,000 a year, and you cash out that 401k, you now have a tax liability for the entire year of $150,000. Well, guess what? You've only been withholding for payment on taxes in the amount of about $50,000 based on your salary. So you have this huge tax bill that you've got to pay, which puts a big dent in your future retirement savings.